Matthew, let me tell you about Screamer, which is a racing game. It's developed and published by Milestone S.r.l. So, for those of you who don't know, they've done the Hot Wheels Unleashed games that have come out and sort of hit recently. Those have sort of found a pretty cool audience. But they've been around forever, since the '90s, doing these sort of arcade racing games, simulation style as well. Like they've done work on like the MotoGP series, if you're familiar with like those motorbikes, motorsport games. So Screamer was actually their first game, or one of their first games as a studio, released all the way back in 1995. And it was by and large just a regular traditional racing game, at the time for PC. And so this is a reboot of that game, but with a completely new coat of paint. And by a completely new coat of paint, I mean an anime aesthetic complete with a full, and I mean full story mode. So much so that I would say story is actually a core like focus and pillar of this game. Don't jump into this expecting like sort of a run of the mill career mode. Like this is a like the game is telling you a story, and it's all wrapped up in this really cool cartoony flashy anime, like '90s anime aesthetic. Before I jump into like my thoughts, I kind of want to jump into how the game plays, because it's very unique for a racing game. It's very much in that arcade racer realm, where it uses a dual stick drift system. And so what I mean by that is, when you're driving, obviously you're using your right trigger for acceleration, your left trigger for braking. Your left stick is going to steer you. However, that steer is, I would say, functionally useless. We can get into that later, but what the game wants you to do is use the right stick to handle drifting. So they want you to drift through turns, and obviously it's all very street racing inspired. So it's all about drifting through these turns, and sort of mastering the timing around that. Like your approach angles matter as well. So all that to say, the drifting speed, or all of that feeds into a like a car combat game as well. So to set the stage there, you are gaining boost by clean racing, or by racing at max speed. And then once you build up enough boost, you're building up boost, you're using the boost to give yourself like temporary speed boost. And then by doing that, you give yourself attack charges, which you can then use to attack and like eliminate players in the field. Once you've done that, they if you eliminate a player, you get rewarded with more boosts. So there's like a nice little cycle there as well. So yeah, let's get into how I'm feeling about it so far. It's really kind of hard to describe how I feel about this game, because I think the skill ceiling is so very very high. Like I can see the potential for this game, like finding a really cool hardcore dedicated audience that masters this, and like I feel like with a group of friends it is a blast. However, I feel like there's like playing alone, both through the story mode and just the regular arcade mode, it really starts to reveal a lot of the problems I have with the game, which is that while the action is cool, like while everything happening on screen is really cool, the sort of competitive balance doesn't seem to really work out. The AI, like computer opponents, seem to not have to follow the same rules as far as the driving. Like there are very specific turns that I've noticed where the AI won't have to go into a drift to complete the turn, whereas if you do not go into a drift, you will slam into a wall. And so I feel like there are some built-in difficulty advantages that the AI is given that just ultimately make this a really challenging game, and that really sort of undoes the entire story mode. So yeah, I think we can start from there.
Yeah. I there is a, it seems to me, I've not yet played this game. I am pretty interested in checking it out. I have read so many descriptions of like the mechanics, just setting aside the like story emphasis, which I think is really interesting and sets it apart alone. But the the mechanics at play here seem very complicated and
Yeah.
very like unlike any other racing game like this. Like I think you could look at the stylization of this and think, oh, like, they're doing like a Need for Speed type thing or something. And it sounds like that analysis would be completely wrong, and the people that went
Yeah.
into this thinking that that's what they were going to get would be very like off put. So
Yeah, I was
how?
initially like very off put by it as well. Sorry, you were going to ask a question.
Well, you were actually good at getting her to answer. I was going to say, so how does this actually like from a like we distill this down into the pure driving experience, like the mechanics, the power ups and boosts that you're getting while driving. Like if we just strip away everything outside of that for now, how does it hold up as a driving game compared to some of the heavy hitters in the genre?
That's where I really struggle with it because I think there's a lot of potential here. Like I don't think that the dual stick drifting is inherently a bad thing. I just think when paired with the more combat focused things like slamming into, like you can also build up, like if you don't use your attack charges, you can build up your and store your charge over time and do like this mega like overdrive attack. So it just seems like the emphasis on stylish and clean driving is at odds with the combat focus. And so I think that paired with the overall difficulty makes it really hard to recommend to someone who just wants a sort of casual, stylish looking game. And also like because of the emphasis on skill and like mastering the mechanics here, there is no real upgrade system. Like you're not like, I was expecting something akin to a Need for Speed Underground where, you've got your cars, you're upgrading, like making it faster, adding more boost, more, drift, whatever it may be. In this, like the unlocks are all purely cosmetic, which are cool. Like it definitely feels like if I had to give one of a compliment to one of the games to the game is that it's the sense of progression is really strong. Whether you're playing in the story mode or in the arcade mode, you're sort of always unlocking, different cosmetics and different body kits and things like that. It's very Super Smash Brothers like, which I really like and enjoy. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're going into this expecting something where, like you're starting out small, progressing, and eventually like just sort of over time getting better and, improving your cars to a point where like they give you a competitive advantage, like this isn't going to be it. Like this is very much a get good racing game, and I think that's going to only appeal to a certain amount of people.
Yeah, I mean, my this very much looks like, you can look at the output from Milestone, this company, and they have put out like racing game after racing game for like decades now, essentially. Most
Yeah.
of them licensed in some capacity. This feels like them saying, okay, we are all everyone that works here is extremely accomplished and knows how to make a racing game. We now have the bandwidth to make something that isn't tied to an official license, and we're going to make this one for the sickos, basically.
Yeah.
Like I mean, they like, okay, like they basically just probably like took all of the stuff that they like and that they haven't been able to put into their output, like a story mode, like that's also anime, like they just threw it all in the pot, all the stuff that they like, and made it specifically for that. So it does feel like this is going to have a super niche audience, but for those people, it is going to like it's going to hit hard, you know?
And I've seen it, right? Like I've seen people say that this is like a game of the year contender for them. And like I see it. Like I see the vision there. And like I want more than anything in the world for my thumbs to do the right things and like so that I can finish higher than like fourth place in a race one time, right? Like it is incredibly challenging. It is and you know, I think even looking past some of the sort of like issues I have with the balancing of it, I think once again, like if you have a group of 4 friends who are into it and like understand what the game is about, like I would probably pick this over Mario Kart World. Like I think when everything is working and firing on all cylinders, you know, not to mention like each of these characters that you unlock either through the story or other means, they all have different abilities, they all have different upsides, downsides. So, you know, on top of the sort of mechanical complexity, they do add on like the characters having their own sort of unique buffs and traits as well. So, you know, once again, it's another thing to manage and to keep up with. And I think it's really only going to appeal to, you know, those who like the Venn diagram of people who are really into hero shooters, but are also into like drifting street culture. So yeah, like it's already like you're already targeting a really niche audience. The game is $60. So it's like, it's one of those things that's like, I hope it finds the audience. And I wish that I was a part of that audience, but it is just, yeah, like I'm not one of the sickos, unfortunately. Just to touch on the story real quick, no spoilers. It is like it's presented like almost visual novel style. Like it's presented similarly to kind of like a Persona game where you've got just like the silhouette, not the silhouette, but like the sort of, like the drawing of a character, avatar of a character, and then just dialogue underneath going back and forth. The stories, you know, like I think there's potential there, but I think, you know, another a complaint I had about the story specifically is that it will add on mechanics. So what I described as far as like the racing is sort of the end goal, right? The story is sort of a slow burn, slow progression getting there where they're layering on everything, which is, I think, you know, there are times where I think it's paced well and times where I think it's not. But then there are times where like they'll add on a layer, but then the next race they'll take it away. And so that leads to moments where like, okay, like there are just, you know, like there's a sequence or a race right now that I just literally can't progress because I don't have like access to the full gameplay suite of, you know, driving racing mechanics. And so like that sort of led me to just not want to play the story mode anymore, right? Like I just kind of wanted to get the full experience, the full gameplay experience. So I ended up having more fun doing that. But, you know, I can't speak to the story like other than really like the first main chapter, like the first, like there's I think there's 3 or 4 parts to it. So, and I'm almost done with like the first part. It's fine. Like it seems kind of like a generic crime, you know, like you're part of like it focuses in on all of the different teams that are participating in this tournament and like what their motivations are and why they're there. Some of them are like inherently good, some of them are inherently bad. So, you know, you kind of get a sense of like this cast of characters and who they are. And so I think that's going to appeal to people who like big ensemble anime where like there's just a diverse cast of characters with differing motivations. I think all of that is good. I just think the moment to moment stuff wasn't compelling enough to make me like push through some of the more challenging elements.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a bummer to hear. I mean, when you have such a, I don't know, when they put as much emphasis on the story as they do here, like it kind of has to be good, right? Like,
yeah,
I think if you were to sit here and tell me, oh yeah, this story is like fantastic and it's tying into the mechanics and the story races really well, I'd be like, great. Like, where do I sign up? Like, let me play this right now. But when you start to say like, you know, the story's not that compelling or it's a little bit generic and the mechanical restrictions that they're placing on you in these story races is actively working to the detriment of what, you know, of how fun the races are to actually take part in, that I don't know, that kind of seems like it undermines like everything that they're trying to do, which is sort of a bummer.
And that's kind of where I come away with on the game overall, where it's like there's there's a lot of good here, but it is undermined by some of just the core decisions that got made. You know, like I think the two biggest ones for me are like, I think the emphasis on drifting and clean driving is cool, but paired with the emphasis on combat is problematic, right? And then going back to the yeah, like the emphasis on the story is like, yeah, it seems like there was a lot put into this to a point where like when I became less interested in completing it, that like, yeah, it completely diminished my view of the game like as a complete package. Because yeah, it really is a I would say a core pillar of the game's experience. Like if you're not planning on playing the story, then like you're probably gonna waste money buying this.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that sort of ties into one of my other questions here, which is like, this is technically a reboot of a 90s series, like Screamer 1 and Screamer 2. But from what I understand, like the original series didn't have any of the sort of the trappings that, are going on here. Like it was sort of more of a standard, classic driving game.
Yeah.
Does this, I mean, I don't know if you played the original at all, but like, is there a reason why they attached the name to this game, or was it more just like hey, we've got this IP and like we might as well just like bring it back for people who do have nostalgia for it, sort of situation?
Yeah, it's probably the latter. I don't see, anything in like researching the original game versus what this one looks like and resembles the direction they went with this for this one. It really just does seem like, yeah, like let's lean into what we like as a studio. They partnered with an external animation studio to develop like sort of all the animated content. So, I think it really just seems like something like a direction that they wanted to go in for their next game. And yeah, they just wanted to attach it to a previous IP. It didn't really seem like, yeah, like there was anything like in terms of a nod to, those original games. Not that I would recognize it anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of odd, but I mean I guess that's also sort of a sign of the times a bit. But I mean, I think I mean, all things considered, I think it's cool that this studio got to make. I mean, it sounds like they got to make the game that they really wanted to make here.
Yeah.
I'd actually forgotten that this was a Game Awards reveal a couple of years ago. So yeah, I mean, it's cool that a studio that got to flex their muscle a little bit, even if it doesn't land on everything. It's going to be for some people. And, my general feelings are that more games should be for specific groups of people and less try to be for everybody. So, yeah, I mean, this sounds like, they did that, and I like that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it was, it's developed, it's self-published, so it very much seems like this is the game that they wanted to make. And like it gives me a little bit of like a sigh of relief, even if the game doesn't find, huge commercial success, is that they're not beholden to, corporate overlords or, like obviously they have to find funding for their next game, but that's a smaller problem than, trying to manage the margins that are sort of becoming the expectation of the EAs of the world. If this were being developed as a Need for Speed game, I would worry more about the team making that than this. So I hope the people they made it for find it and play it and love it, because I see that I can see there's a lot of potential for it. But yeah, I wish them well. And, if you are one of those sickos, you can play Screamer right now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and it's out on PC as well. That's what I played it on. It looks great. It plays great. Like the art style is amazing. It's got, I would say the soundtrack is mixed, but it's got what I would say like some of the sickest like menu music of all time. So like if you like style, if you like action, and if you're willing to sort of master the difficult driving, I think there's a really cool game in here for you.
Awesome.